Welcome, everybody. 6 o'clock on the dot. Thank you. Even those of you that thought you were going to be late, nicely done. Pursuant to Section 84-1412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody about the shin guards under the table before you cross your legs. Dr. McFarland, roll call, please.
Almanza.
Present.
Erdenberger.
Present.
Bull.
Here.
Holman.
Present.
Bratke.
Here.
Magnuson.
Present.
Smith.
Here.
Snipes.
Here.
Phelan.
Here.
9 present.
Excellent. And we do not appear to have any public comment, so we can move right on to our information items. The first of which, I guess I'm introducing our workshop regarding the strategic plan of action updates, and Dr. Crow will be our first speaker.
As Dr. Crow walks up here, this is, oh, I'm sorry, it's not on the script, but it is an exciting workshop because it does summarize the strategic plan that we created and launched January of 2020, actually. So the data is not necessarily exciting in all that we share, but it does summarize the work of 5 years. And I just want to remind people a little bit of the timeline, not as an excuse in any sort of means, but just as a reminder of what we did in 5 years and what the organization experienced in that 5 years. So in January 2020, the strategic plan was launched, and then 2 months later, the school district basically closed for the rest of the year for COVID. And then 2021, we had a late start, and then we went into the 3-2 model. I believe the whole school year was the 3-2 model. And then 21-22 was a whole school year of masks. And then 22-23 was the first year, no masks, no closure. And then 23-24 and 24-25. So this by no means is in any way justifying any numbers, only setting the stage for what we experienced during those 5 years. And so the numbers that you see, the data that you'll see in the presentation is the goals that you picked as part of the survey that was conducted by Dr. Crow. And the numbers that you will see, or the goals that you'll see as part of this presentation, doesn't mean that it's the end of us working on anything. It's not meaning that we won't look at academics or we won't look at attendance anymore. It's meant to show you where we ended and the commitment that we made when we launched the plan in 2020, because these goals were based around a 2025 deadline. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Crow.
Actually, can I ask a quick question, Superintendent Ray? We're going to be starting our next strategic plan. Do you have enough information in your head to share with everybody about when we will start doing that and how you see that happening?
So yes, I mean, we've been, I've given updates a little bit about what we're seeing already from both empathy interviews from staff a little bit, also some of the feedback we've received when we're launching the moonshot. The commitment the board's already made with the moonshot is lined up with some of the work we've already done. We'll be talking about it in the next couple of months with hopefully a launch in January of 2026. But definitely the board will be part of that and input as we go through. But hopefully moving from that strategic plan of 50 goals to now 20-some goals. But I think what's the power of this strategic plan has really been the values as well and the norms that have been created. It's really lining up very well to another strategic plan. I think it's also important to remind everybody that we did revise some of the goals. I think it was February of 2022 where the board approves some revised goals as well.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption. Dr. Crow, have at it.
Thank you. President Erdenberger, Vice President Snipes, members of the board, and Superintendent Ray, good evening, and thank you for your time. Tonight, we'll share our final look back at the 2020 through 2025 Strategic Plan of Action, and just as importantly, recognize how far we've come together. 5 years ago, we decided not to steer by the rearview mirror. We adopted a strategic foresight approach to anticipate the forces shaping Omaha's young people and to design a plan that was powered by foresight. 2 Futures Labs brought 13 cross-sector teams to map the social, technological, economic, environmental, and political trends most likely to shape our district through 2030, from the growing teacher shortage to rising poverty to the mental health needs of students. The process was as much community building as planning. We logged roughly 680 hours of direct stakeholder input, completed 7 comprehensive reviews of district data, and invited students, families, staff, and community members to partake in surveys, focus groups, and data walks. Their insights were filtered through our shared values: equity, results, leadership, accountability, and joy, and then crystallized into 4 strategic priorities: academics, staff, financial accountability, and ethic of care. When our Board of Education unanimously adopted the plan on February 3rd of 2020, they also required twice-yearly progress reports and an 18-month goal refresh cycle, keeping the plan fluid and future-focused. The twice-yearly progress report is available to each of you via the Strategic Plan of Action Goal Progress Dashboard, and this will be the final 18-month goal update. Over the last 5 years, our work extended beyond the original checklist of tasks. As we dug in, we spotted areas that needed strong scaffolding and, in true Omaha Public Schools fashion, rolled up our sleeves and built the systems ourselves. We pursued district-wide accreditation so every school will operate under the same rigorous standards that will be reviewed in a consistent, open way. We formed elementary and secondary support teams that provided targeted assistance to enhance student achievement, helping staff focus on teaching rather than troubleshooting. Responding to teacher feedback about the need for and value of time, we instituted late start improvement days, protected space for reflection, planning, and professional learning. We opened our classroom doors to one another through instructional rounds, turning peer observation into district-wide habit that sharpens our collective practice. Professional learning communities matured right alongside that work. Teachers now meet with data in hand and a clear plan for adjusting instruction. All this sits on top of a shared learning framework that aligns curriculum, instruction, and assessment. With that framework in place, we adopted fresh instructional materials that meet today's standards and our students' diverse needs. Meanwhile, the curriculum teams never stopped revising and refining content to keep it rigorous, relevant, and equitable. For those of you who joined the board after 2020, here's a quick reminder of how tonight's 6 spotlight goals were chosen. I sent a rank order survey out to all board members, and this survey contained all goals listed in the Strategic Plan of Action. The board then rank ordered every goal in the plan according to each of your goal priorities. Upon completion of the rank ordering, your top choices are as follows: academic goals 2, 3, and 4, staffing goal 1, ethic of care goal 1, and financial accountability goal 1. And so here's how tonight's session will run. Each team responsible for one of the goals will take the mic, walk you through a brief progress narrative, and invite your questions. We have 5 deep dive goals plus a capsule summary of the remaining 17 inside a roughly 90-minute window. So each presentation will run about 7 to 10 minutes, followed by 5 to 8 minutes for conversation. I'll keep an eye on the clock so that every presenter is heard and every board member has time to inquire. With that backdrop, are there any questions before we begin? Seeing none, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the evening, Ms. Susan Christofferson, our Chief Academic Officer.
Before Susan starts, I want to talk, and if you said this, John, I'm sorry, I had to talk to Annie about this real quick, but each goal is set up, and then there's time for questions after each.
Yeah, sorry about that. So each goal will be presented, and then there's a final slide after each goal that has that asks for questions. So you'll have 7 opportunities throughout the evening.
Wow. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Crow. So let's begin by discussing our first goal. Out of strategic priority goal 1, academics, goal number 2, annually each school will have 4% more kindergarten through 3rd grade students that will read on grade level as measured on standardized district assessments. This chart shows the percentage of schools who met the goal, the percentage of schools who grew but did not yet meet the goal. 11 schools met the growth goal of 4%. 37 schools showed growth but did not meet the 4% goal. And 48 schools experienced growth at or above the 50th percentile between 2022-2023 and 24-25. While we did not meet this goal in the 24-25 school year, we have begun an upward trend, increasing growth by 4.6% and meeting the goal by 1.5%. As we look at this data over the years, we have seen uneven growth over these past few years. So those schools may have had a net of 7% in 2 years. Next year, they might not have met that goal. And Adams is a great example of this. They went up 10%, which is fantastic, in 22-23, and then they were down 3% in 23-24. So they still had a net percent of growth of 7%. Minnelusa is another example. They had 11% over 2 years, but that was distributed as 8% and then 3% in 1 year of met and not met. So growth is happening. It's just not happening at a consistent 4% every school year. We had only 7 schools at this point, and only is not okay. We know who those 7 are and what we need to be doing. There are 7 schools that did not meet or grow in the 22-23 and 23-24, and that is the work that we know we have in front of us to help ensure that they are growing and moving forward. So what are the shifts we are making to increase growth and proficiency gains? We are enhancing elementary literacy next year through master scheduling to support an uninterrupted structured literacy block, which includes an intervention time. We are working toward all kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers taking an early literacy workshop course. It's made possible through the teamwork through district staff, University of Nebraska, Omaha, and leading educators. We have provided updated guidance on departmentalization to ensure that only 4th through 6th grade can consider this as an instructional option. Through the diligent and focused work of our talent services, we have decreased the number of multi-grade classrooms, and we are providing training to elementary instructional paraprofessionals on an identified literacy intervention. And we are also working to align the role of school-based reading specialists across our entire district. And with that, I will take some questions.
Dr. Holman?
Thank you, President Erdenberger. With regards to our multi-grade classrooms, I know we don't have a whole lot, but are they mostly at the lower levels, like 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, 4th?
It varies. It varies depending on the school.
Thank you.
Could you repeat that answer? Because I was being interrupted by somebody else.
Multi-grade classrooms are, it depends on where they're at and what grade levels they are. They aren't necessarily automatic combinations across. It depends on the staffing.
Can we dispense with Ms. Erdenberger having to call on people and let you call on them as they raise their hands? Would that be okay with you? Thank you.
Me? John? Mrs. Kratky?
We can expect is this variation, because we're not going to have the same children, the same teacher, the same everything. So it's going to vary some. What we would like to do is have that school always be making the growth we want them to make, but we can't plan on that. Do we have anything in mind that we want to do to prepare those kindergartners before they even come to us a little bit so that we can have a little bit better shot at making that goal?
I think we continue to strive for having as many early childhood classrooms as we possibly can so that we can help our students be ready for when they enter. I think it's also some of the collaborative work that we are starting to discuss of how might we engage the community and better helping the readiness of our young people as they come and join us. And so it's really about developing a system-wide and a community-wide efforts toward helping to support reading as a whole.
Do we have some schools already on that pathway that we are working with, doing that right now? So
We are continuously seeking input as we work to develop what that could potentially look like and what schools are doing it really well and how can we improve upon that.
Thank you. Two things. One, just under the rationale for status, that first point, if you could just break that down for me, so I understand that.
The collaboration with leading educators,
Yeah.
that one. So we have,
Definition work, collaborative measure definition work.
so we are partnering and we have been partnering with leading educators in various facets, which you all have, we've shared different agreements and things that we're doing, and also collaborating with UNO and with our elementary schools in ensuring that all of our students, or all of our students, all of our teachers are getting trained in the science of reading. And the collaboration with UNO and leading educators is giving teachers an opportunity to actually experience the science of reading through our curriculum. So our teachers are actually diving into their own curriculum and applying the concepts or the principles of the science of reading in and a part of the work that they are doing. And then they also have the opportunity to earn credit or stipend to help support the work that they are doing because it's an actual course.
I think I'm looking at something
Oh, I'm
else.
sorry.
What I'm looking at looks more like something around like mismatch, maybe like national norms versus like locals.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this slide. I'm sorry.
Summary.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Let me
And
pull
I
the
can
summary.
always email that question too. It's just I was looking at it and I said, how to break that down.
Sorry, let me pull the, so you're looking actually in the report and not,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holman.
Like, all right. Oh, so in regards to which part of that? I just want to make sure I'm tracking you better. So the 50th percentile of the NWEA MAP growth is seen as grade level. So if you're at 50th percent, you are determined that you are at that grade level mark, which helps us to benchmark where we are at with our own students. And given 2 out of the 3 of these grades, I think it's also keeping in mind that as we look at kindergarten through 3rd grade and who is taking that MAP, not all of them are participating in MAP. So it's being able to look at that one grade level, and you're trying to see that entire picture without data at every grade level. So it's a little bit of a tricky goal to assess. Got anything to add?
If you could just maybe explain a little bit about the, as far as like interventions, the identified literacy intervention.
So as we look at the skills and talents of our paraprofessionals, instead of every para or each school choosing a different reading intervention, we are determining what is that one intervention that all paraprofessionals will participate and help support in the schools, and we would provide that professional learning to them. They get training, they would have professional learning, and then we would help to identify the students that they would be working with in these schools.
Carry on. Oh, wait, was there a question? Nick?
Yes, sorry.
Missed.
Excuse me. What schools were the ones that didn't make it, and were there common themes within those 7 schools?
I will get you those 7 schools specifically. I can share that with Annie or Mr. Ray, but I don't know if it is common as much as, well, I guess there's just some certain things of helping to improve Tier 1 instruction and what that looks like as far as fidelity of implementation of the curriculum and supporting the teachers.
I don't know that I can avoid this feeling a little bit like a pointed question, but please take it in the spirit of really just seeking to understand and kind of how we think about curriculum adoptions and things. A lot of these things happened relatively recently, and there's obviously good reasons for that. We did a reading curriculum adoption in 2020.
During the middle of COVID,
Yes.
we actually did field testing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it was not probably, but we moved forward.
Yes. My question is, did we look at the implementing structured literacy at the time? Did we choose not to do it at the time, or why didn't we, or?
It was not available at the time. So who we work with, who the vendor is, HMH, they actually are an iterative company. And so as they are growing and evolving and developing different things and they're learning, they're actually sharing some of those things with us, and structured literacy was one of them that they brought to us, saying, we have heard, we have listened, we have learned, and we have now developed this. Would you all consider it? And that's when we brought it to you all. We did some field testing with it to make sure we felt good and comfortable with it, and then we brought it to the board in order to actually approve and purchase at the time when it became available.
Perfect. Really appreciate it.
I'd actually like to follow up on Vidi's question, Ms. Almanza's question. You know which schools are not in this category of either the 4% or some progress, and the notion of, who are they and why. I didn't quite understand your answer, but do you look at them and say, oh, all of them have this percentage free and reduced lunch, or all of them are, don't have a playground, or do you look at them to find commonalities to be able to determine what we can change?
Yes. In simplest of terms, yes. And so I think that's where the ESTs and SSTs, but at the elementary level, it'd be the elementary support teams as we look at each of those schools, because every school, while there could be some potential commonalities, which might be the implementation of the curriculum. What does that look like? How does that look like? Maybe it is the age of their staff. What are the veteran staff? What's the new staff? I think it's taking all of those things into consideration. And then as we work curriculum and instruction, and also working with principal supervisors on what does that specific need to look like, because every school does have their own culture, but what are the common things that we can do to help support?
Well, I guess that makes me wonder what some of the trends are you're seeing, but I imagine we know what some of them are. But is there anything that's coming to mind that you see?
I think that some of the things that I'm speaking to, I think attendance also plays a role in what that looks like for students in attending. But I also think it really comes down to ensuring that we have strong tier 1 core instruction, that every day, all day, what that instruction looks like is consistent, that the materials are being used in a manner that is designed, and how are we helping to improve what that looks like, and ensuring that we are looking at the data, how are we making a difference with the data that's there right in front of us, and having those collaborative conversations. I don't think it's due to anyone not wanting to do well, not wanting to meet that effort. It's how do we take a look at the systems that we have, and how do we provide the support that we need to give them.
I was thinking more things that are outside of the school may have some sort of impact, but all of this here is.
I think it's always about taking a look at what do we have, our sphere of control, our influence of at the time, because we can't absolutely control everything outside of it. But what do we have that we can do?
But if there are some things that you identify that are outside of your control, that is where community can come.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sorry, Ms. Full.
Thank you. So with this data, it's kind of like the K through third grade, they're all lumped in together. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering, do students generally improve as they progress in grade level, or not really? Are you not seeing that like positive growth as they progress within the district, or what does that look like?
I think we definitely see and want to ensure that there is positive growth every year for a student. We also know that there are certain things that sometimes happen, that maybe that trajectory, or maybe they grew a lot one year and maybe not as much the following year, but our intended goal is to ensure that every student is growing every school year.
I know that's our intention, but like, what does the data actually say?
That piece I would actually have to dig a little deeper, and I can respond back. Jackie?
I would think that for the paraprofessionals, or for those teachers that you acknowledge that did well, I bet that they looked at it like a challenge and they were going to do it. That's just how I think they felt, and they just charged ahead and did it.
I think we have some amazing paraprofessionals, and so having the opportunity to utilize their skills and talents in a very purposeful way, I think will be fantastic for our district.
And that's great.
Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next goal. The second goal we are providing an update on is each year, every high school will increase the percentage of 9th through 12th grade students identified as on track for graduation by 5%. The strategic plan set a goal for each school to increase the percentage of 9th through 12th graders identified as on track for graduation by 5%. This table measures this goal by calculating the change in on-track rates from 22-23 to 23-24 by school and program. The measurement definition process was developed during the 22-23 school year by a collaborative group including CIS, IMS, and DS and School Improvement. I know that we had about 3 different presentations throughout the year to help better understand what on-track meant and some of the work that we were doing. After applying our measurement definitions to the 22-23 student data, a baseline was calculated for this goal. While 7 of 9 of our high schools increased on-track rates, no schools surpassed the goal. Though South was within rounding distance from between the 5% goal, they had a 4.8% increase. We have now identified a normalized time frame to undertake these calculations following next level learning. With this in mind, for the 23-24 school year, 64% of all high school students are currently on track. Westview is at the highest at 80.4%, and the lowest on track is North with 51.9%. So what are our next steps as we continue to support our students being and staying on track to graduate? It was a real game changer to define and operationalize what it means for high school students to be on track. We were able to ensure that everyone, teachers, principals, and our team were all speaking the same language. This shared understanding allows us to use data more effectively to identify areas of need, whether for specific groups of students or individual learners. It also sparks meaningful conversations across classrooms, schools, and district, helping us to collaborate more intentionally to support student success. Our focus on freshmen continues to assist in supporting the transition year to high school by generating opportunities for our freshmen to engage in co-curricular, extracurricular, and coursework opportunities in and outside of the classroom. Examples include summer camps, college visits, field trips, service learning projects, while supporting their understanding of what it means to actually be on track. How do you advocate to get help now that you are in the high school? And who is actually here to help you? We all know the importance of building effective relationships and developing a sense of belonging, which is one of the intentions behind every student having an advisement teacher. We believe we can enhance this experience by integrating opportunities for additional intervention during advisement time, which will include additional support for reading. We continue our efforts to expand access to advanced academic opportunities, including dual enrollment courses, career credentialing, and advanced diploma pathways. And with that, on the on-track.
Ms. Crackey.
Okay, so those that are in red, did we anticipate that that may happen to the school because of what happened in their other experience before they got to the high school, or was that completely just on that one time at the high school?
While there are a range of things as any child enters our high school, I think we work to try to take into consideration that every student is entering at a different place, even though we're working hard to make sure that they're leveling out when they get to us at the high school. We are working to make sure that once they get to us, we're working to support them directly when they get there.
But it's such a big gap that I would want to know what happened to them at middle school going on there before they got over here. Did you anticipate or see that they had a minus kind of thing going on?
Whether or not really understanding about what it took to be on track. I do think it is, which is one of the reasons why we have to define what on track looks like. And one of the things we're now doing at middle level is helping our middle school understand what does it mean to be on track. It's a very different experience at middle level than high school, credit bearing and all of that. And so we are working to better help students and families better understand what on track looks like at middle school, so it's not such a new concept to them when they get to the high school.
Ms. Volk.
Thank you. I'm wondering, what does advisement currently look like? How many students per advisor, teacher, and how are you planning on revamping advisement?
So advisement currently has a combination of things. We utilize Naviance lessons, so helping and ensuring, and then we have a switch to School Links, which is very similar to a Naviance program, which helps students to better understand.
Naviance program?
Naviance.
Naviance, what is that?
Naviance was a program through our school counseling, which we've now shifted to School Links this past school year, which gives students an opportunity to engage in a variety of lessons of better understanding their interests, their strengths, better knowing how to get ready for the college experience. We're now exploring ACT prep and what that might be looking like, because there's that also as an option and a part of School Links. There's badging, it's tied to the portrait of a graduate. There's SEL lessons they're given. School counselors, with the number of school each counselor has, it's hard to get in and out of every classroom. So how are advisement teachers also helping and supporting what it looks like to grow and to learn and help better prepare a young person as they navigate through. And so each high school, there are actually defined lessons that we are expecting schools to provide that has been helped divide across the district. And those are 2 days a week. And then schools are doing some specific things that they know are speaking to the students in their schools. And so we're going to be working with them on what that can look like and when might we be able to offer some additional intervention time to help support some students who might not be on track, well, who are not on track, or might needing some additional support in reading.
So with the additional intervention time, like where does that time come from?
So as we work, they already have advisement time that's a part of their schedule, and it varies a little bit by school because each school has a bit of their own design for the allocated time for advisement. And so that'll be a part of the conversation to say, we want this exact amount of time allocated for advisement yet. These are part of the conversations that will be coming.
How often do they usually meet with their advisors?
Advisement currently is every day.
Every day, okay. And with what you said, is that all you plan to do to revamp the advisement system?
Not necessarily. I think that's one of the things that we're considering and looking at, and there'll be more input as we go along, and making sure that high schools and middle schools are definitely involved in that conversation. But as we're moving forward, it's about how are we working together as an entire system to ensure that we have the right things in place to support growth.
I'd be really interested in learning more about how we're going to revamp our advisement program or class, whatever we call it, because I think that's a really good time to connect with the students about that kind of stuff. And if it could be utilized in a more effective way, then I think that would be beneficial for us as a district and for the students, obviously, to reach their achievement goals. That's all the questions I have right now.
So agree about advisement. As a person who high school and had advisement, I had the same students for 4 years. It was, you could set goals, you could have conversations, and you knew exactly where they're at with their academics as they were progressing through.
Ms. Snipes, then Ms. Almanza.
Thank you for the question on advisement, because I was wondering too. It's just a really valuable time. How long have you been doing On Track?
We actually just fully finalized the definition in the 22-23 school year. It took a lot to coordinate and how we were going to do it, not just the definition, but how would we really collect the data to be able to share it in an effective manner for schools to be able to use it as well.
This question might not matter. I'm not sure. I guess when I'm just looking at the numbers, I'm wondering the schools that came close to meeting that goal. I'm wondering, is anything happening there that can be duplicated? And when I look at the like Accelerate and Blackburn, and I look at those gaps, is there anything that speaks to why those numbers look like that?
So I think in recognizing and understanding that the majority of our students who are entering a program most likely are off track before they have arrived at a program. But we have some conversations that we began a year ago or so with a visioning team for our alternative program and really thinking about them as enrichment and engagement programs. And what might we need to be doing, what's really working well in those programs, what might be some things that we need to consider, what might possibly be missing in those programs, and that is part of the upcoming conversation as well. Because we want to ensure that it's not, all of these students are connected to all of our high schools, so how are we ensuring their success too when they're coming?
Thank you. Do we have any data or information on when students start falling off track, or if there's a common theme, or if there's, is it as they get closer to their junior year, or is there anything?
What we know is that their ninth grade year, they are on track, where we have a tendency to see them fall a little bit more as their sophomore year. And so part of us is wondering what types of structures and supports are we needing? We have some really robust things happening that freshman year. What might we need to be thinking about and adding for that sophomore year? And then typically students by their junior year are like, I'm close, I better get on track or do some different things. So we're looking about what might we need to be doing that sophomore year. I think the other great component of actually having the definition and the work that we're doing, as Dr. Crow mentioned, with professional learning communities, is teachers and staff and everyone having this data right there. It's just in time. So as they're meeting in the PLC conversations, they're able to take a look at the data and say, okay, I need to go meet with, we have 6 of this class that is off. What can we do differently right now? What do I need to be doing to help reach out? And when people are working collectively as teams and then noticing some common themes amongst 20 different students, what can we do collectively to help support that 20 so that our efforts are more well-intentioned versus trying to do and catch all the one-offs? It makes it more challenging because just when you catch one, somebody else is starting to go. So how do we start to make sure that we're looking at the data as an entire system? Is it data, or is it attendance that's standing in the way of these 40 students? What do we need to hone in on for those 40 students and start to narrow it in? So thinking about the 360 dashboard as well.
Senator Berger.
I regularly start these questions with a disclaimer about my numbers ability, but it's interesting for me to consider, for example, on the on-track data that is the quote worst, the bottom half of the graph, those student bodies are very liquid. So it's entirely possible that the kids that were there one year are not there the next year. So it's kind of hard to compare the on track from one year to the next, I'm guessing. Is there any way, and I'm not asking you to tell me right now, but do you keep on track for the same kids so that you can designate, it's very possible that if you looked at the same 10 kids that were there both years, what does their on track look like? And that would be presumably a lot different number than what we're seeing here.
Yes, so we could definitely take a look at that. And then the 360 dashboard helps us to hone in even more specifically when we look at specific students, or we can narrow it in even more to help and do that. And that will be some of the work that we know we have looking forward in front of us as we work with our programs.
So maybe I just went through that process to help myself not be so freaked out by the fact that we had a 25% drop at Accelerate, because we don't really, from these numbers, know which kids we're talking about. Sort of the flip side of that is I look at Burke and I see it dropping 5%, but the number it started at was 71%. So it's a little misleading to see it has dropped down, which is never a good thing, to a number of 66, which is still a pretty high number compared to the other high schools. So the percentages give us something to look at and figure out why it's happening. but there's a certain amount of leveling. I do not for a second want to not celebrate South High having increased theirs by 4.8%. I attended an event that the Empowerment Network put on at the Metro Community College. I think it was one of the empathy things a couple months ago. And the topic was attendance. And I remember them asking, it was, I can't remember if you and Suzanne might have been doing it. It was about how important 90% attendance was. And there was a question, how many of you guys think that you're at 90% or above? And practically every student in the room thought they were at 90% or above, whereas when you brought the data up, no, you aren't. You think you are, but look at the numbers of what's actually happening, which is a long way to get around to how often do the students who think they're on track, like every morning in advisement maybe, look to see if they, because I recognize your teachers and your support groups look at it. Do the students look at this on a regular basis and, they've deluded themselves into thinking they're on track unless they look at this and they go, holy crap, crap's okay.
I think there's a couple of components there. So while they meet with school counselors and the expectation is that, that's another importance of advisement, which is looking at the data, setting goals, because one of the most important things that we can help students do is really understand where they're at and what are the goals, what steps are they going to take to help achieve the goals that they have set for themselves, and how are we helping to collaborate and do that alongside of them. So I think, I know it's a part of advisement, it is not happening with fidelity that I think we could work to improve.
Thank you. Good use of the word fidelity. Any other questions, or can we move on? Oops, I'm sorry.
So we have about a minute left for questions for this, and then,
okay.
So maybe one more.
So another interesting thing with this data set I see, specifically with our programs, is the numbers of the total student count change pretty drastically in places like Exceller, our Omaha Virtual High School. I'm looking at the ESL Teen Literacy Center. I wondered if you could comment on how, what is that? What are we doing? What changes did we make to those programs?
So I think it's keeping in mind that students who are in these programs are cognitively capable, strong individuals. They have typically had some additional circumstances, in or outside, that have potentially impacted them to not stay on track. And so as we look at the Teen Literacy Center, for example, the majority of them are newcomers to us. So our goal isn't for them to remain at the Teen Literacy Center for years. It is they are also integrated into their home high school for the first block of every day. And then we're working to help them better understand and grasp English and be a part of literacy and growing so that they then become a part of their high school. So it's not a permanent placement, if that makes sense. And actually, in looking at our programs, none of them are designed to be permanent placements. They are, in a sense, there to help and support a young person grow at that time. And the intent is to really work towards getting them back to that traditional high school setting or experience, because it has additional opportunities. Accelerate is probably the one that students who are coming there are typically 17, 18, 19 years of age, and they are at that precipice that we can get them some of the credits to make sure that they're able to attain their graduation diploma. So each program speaks to a little bit of the different of what it is that we are offering at each program.
Okay, and I wanted to reference Blackburn specifically because I've had a lot of conversations with our superintendent about Blackburn because, you know, when I visit Blackburn and I talk to the principal there and the teachers, it's very much an environment almost like a traditional high school, but it's not quite there yet. And I think when I talk to the people in that building, they are interested in seeing it being a more long-term option for students. And so I'm wondering, are there any conversations around, the direction that Blackburn is going? Because I think that program is very important to the community. And I think if that building and its administration is saying it needs something, and we're not quite, or at least to my knowledge, we're not really doing anything to address that. You want to comment on that?
I will tell you that based on some of the visioning that occurred a year or so ago, we have taken into consideration what are some potential next steps. So as we are adjusting and moving some different locations and pulling some groups together to be more efficient in how we are approaching and supporting all of them, it is then our next step to take a look at what programs, what's working well in each of those programs, what are some other things that we need to consider, but it's also taking a look at what might we need to be doing differently and what student groups are we not addressing that aren't still finding their home and their space within the current programming that we have. So yes, and I think it's kind of keeping all of those things in mind as we start to navigate and move forward.
And I think an important part of that too is if you want to be a comprehensive high school, you still have to operate under a school improvement model. So if you want to be all of that, you still have to be held accountable for what you produce. And so part of that is running, and I think we talked about that at one of the workshops. Mr. Wagner talked about going through programs and doing school improvement in all the programs as well. So we do want to make sure that we have a few more goals, and if we don't get to all the questions, don't hesitate to. If you have questions that we're not hitting that we want to make sure we get to. So we want to make sure we get to everybody's questions as well.
I hear what you're saying about kind of Blackburn has to be held accountable for.
I wasn't speaking directly about Blackburn. I was talking about any of those below the line.
I think that Dr. Crow is in charge of keeping us on schedule, so he's kind of getting a little nervous over there. So
I'll just pass that off.
So is it time? I think it might be time to move on to the next item. Thank you.
The third goal tonight we are providing an update on is student groups at each middle school will meet or exceed growth goals in math and reading 3% annually. Okay. This is a very difficult goal as it contemplates performance across two subject areas, reading and math, for four different student groups. We have race, ethnicity, English learner, special education, English benefits, free and reduced lunch. Taken together, this means each school must increase the percentage of students meeting or exceeding growth goals in both math and reading for 11 different types. As such, no school met that goal standard with all student groups each year. However, when we viewed at the student group level over the last 3 years, significant growth in the percentage of students meeting or exceeding their growth goals was evidenced across both math and reading for student groups. In reading, two groupings of students, race and our educational benefits, free and reduced lunch students saw real sustained growth each year in the percentage of schools where student groups grew by the goal level of 3% or more students meeting or exceeding growth goals in reading. All student groups ended the 24-25 school year with significantly higher percentages of schools meeting the goal that was observed in 22-23. In math, the significant growth in reading identified, especially for the 24-25 school year, seemed to maybe have come at the expense of some of the performance at math. The percentage of schools meeting growth goals for the student groups increased from 22-23 to 23-24, a trend only exhibited for half of the student groups for reading, where nearly all groups increased from 23-24 to 24-25. Only educational benefits, free and reduced lunch eligibility student groups increased in all 3 years. However, on average, student groups ended 24-25 higher than they ended the 22-23 school year. As for next steps at middle level, we are exploring how we can have math and reading instruction every day or daily for all students. We are looking to reorganize structures to emphasize our core academics alongside student interest and career exploration. We are deepening the understanding and implementation of the science of reading at the middle level. And we know the importance of building effective relationships and developing a sense of belonging, as we talked at the high school, which is one of the intentions behind every student having an advisement teacher. We believe we can also enhance the experience at middle level by integrating more opportunities for intervention at the middle level, especially to support reading during advisement time as well. That's one of the things that we're exploring too. So I will take questions.
Ms. Cracky?
Is there any way we have an opportunity to see what the different middle schools look like?
That I would have to work with
'Cause
research
I
to be able
did
to
not see
provide.
them.
Correct. It is not provided because we tried to give the summarization of the entire goal, but we can work to see what we can provide.
To try to see what that was looking like.
We can absolutely get those.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the chart. I'm not sure I understand the chart. When you're doing your percentages I just don't understand the breakdown on the left-hand margin, so I can better understand the percentages across. What are we talking about there? Thank you.
Meaning the number,
Well, for example,
what's the number of race and ethnicity?
race ethnicity,
across all?
we've got 30, I don't know what race ethnicity means.
So-
English learner I've got, and special education I've got, and educational benefits, I'm not sure what that refers to.
Oh, educational benefits is free and reduced lunch. Oh,
Thank you. Okay, so of kids that are on free and reduced lunch in the educational benefits category,
yes.
these are what those numbers look like.
Through
What's the
all
race?
13 middle schools.
Yeah, right. In the race ethnicity category, who are we looking at in that category?
So it would be every breakdown of subgroup all combined into one race ethnicity group.
So we're averaging what we colloquially call the white kids, the black kids, the Hispanic kids, the other kids. Okay, got it. We don't have I know you do have a breakdown based on the individual ethnicities in there. Do we also analyze whether and to what extent those breakdowns track the average, so to speak?
So that's I think one of the benefits of the 360 dashboard. So for each school, they are able to go in and look more specifically at every student, every race, ethnicity, free and reduced lunch, and everything, that they can dive even deeper into that. And I don't know, Scott, I'm looking to you. Is there something more additionally that we'd be able to provide to break this down even more? Sorry, thank you.
So yeah, this is one of the reports, or one of the data goal areas that we've integrated into our reporting. So every year when you get an NWEA map report, we've included kind of a breakdown for all the map aligned goals. So for this one, it really is putting the capital A in all. So when we say race ethnicities, we expect every single race and ethnicity to move forward by 3% as a group in math. Additionally, English learners, non-English learners, waived English learners, and former English learners are all discrete categories, each of which have to move forward, special education or non. And so you can start to see for a given student like myself, white, I'd be in the race category, and male, we didn't do gender, special education, I had an IEP, so I'd be in that category. And so you can just see that through these various cross sections, we're able to get to some root causes for individual needs for individual students and for better supports for groups from our value of equity.
I guess my question was, let's look at the 75%. at the very far right at the top up there for race ethnicity. That's like an average of all of the subgroups in effect, right? Let's pretend for a second that our Hispanic kids were at 85%, our other kids are at 75, our African American, to the extent that you see groups that are below what the average is, you are in a position to identify them and do something about it.
Yes.
Thank you. I won't ask everything that you do about it, but we stay aware of which groups are not
Absolutely.
hitting the mark,
Absolutely.
I guess, so to
This
speak.
is just an entire conglomeration of putting it all together.
Nonetheless, averaging that growth is a good, on that particular line is a good thing, so nicely done.
Other questions? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, Ms. Snipes.
I mean, once I guess we know which schools, I guess I'm just wondering, any schools that had any like promising, like, we don't know the schools, but that's just, I'm thinking out loud.
I think it's a great thought to have out loud, and I think that's where our SSTs and working with the principal supervisor comes into play. That helps us to see what those promising practices are across the district and how might we continue to share what those are and help to integrate them in other places. I think that's one of the collaborative efforts that has really been strengthened by our district throughout the past several years, is us really knowing and understanding what's happening in each of the buildings and how might we take those best efforts to replicate them in other places. At the same time, understanding that each school has a bit of a different culture, so how might they take that concept and make it come to life in their own individual school.
And we are able to eventually like see that, the schools, and then digging down further into like the race.
Were the groups defined at the outset when the goals were set, or is that something that we kind of came back later and defined better?
I think we had to, as you look, it just said student groups. It was a very broad category as defined, and then we had to work to, how do we work to define that? It was not clearly defined at the time.
Original.
So we had to determine how best to potentially move forward and share.
That's helpful. I appreciate that. I think that with maybe a number of these, I think one of the things that I'll be kind of taking forward as we go to the next one is how we set these goals and the numbers and the metrics.
That would be great.
The original goal just said increase annually. Yep.
And it was a different goal even before that. This was a replacement goal. So yes.
Offhand question, what is the reason for having math and reading in the same goal?
I could specify the direct rationale for that. I don't know that I have the full explanation that I would be able to offer with conciseness and answer.
Ms. Cracky?
Maybe I'm the only one looking at this way. The English learner was, in 23-24, was 41, and down on the next one, their math was so much higher, it was 66, but then it went down the next year, and the other one went up.
The
I'm
percentage,
confused about
it's
that.
the percentage of schools that met that goal is how it is.
Okay.
So if
It's weird.
if I look at strategic English learner for meeting reading, 47.2% of our middle schools met that goal as defined, and it was a little less in math for that school year. It's the percentage of schools meeting.
I'm sorry, could you clarify? You gave an answer that I was not expecting, so it did not compute. These percentages are based on the, how many middle schools do we have?
This means each school must increase the percentage. I'm just going to make sure I'm saying this all together. This means each school must increase the percentage of students meeting or exceeding So this is two groupings of students, so looking at reading, two groupings of students saw sustained growth each year in the percentage of schools where student groups grew by the goal level of 3% or more students meeting or exceeding growth goals in reading. Student groups.
Okay, it's students, not
Yeah,
schools.
student groups.
Okay,
Sorry.
good, thank you. That's the answer I was expecting. Thank you.
All right, so I'd like to introduce our next presenter. It's going to be Dr. Nero, our Chief Talent Officer.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I attacked the table there when I got here. I will be providing an update on the staffing goal, which you can see here by June of 2025. A pipeline of teachers will be developed so that 95% of teaching positions are filled in each school by August 1 of each year with highly qualified candidates. We know that the work of this district and all of the things that you're seeing always relies on available human resources. So, of course, that has been the focus for this group the last few years. For the purposes of our discussion, highly qualified candidates is operationalized to indicate people with experience or interest in serving in an urban environment and hired into positions for which match their certification. And here you'll see annually the data that has been provided. And we were able to meet, I should say we, or my predecessor and the team, were able to meet our goal every year except the August of 2023. We slipped just under that 95% for secondary. And this focuses on classroom teachers, not some of the support staff. So we're really trying to really hone in on that classroom teacher group. So when you're wondering what is that meaning, just at that point, it's really about who is right in front of students, serving students within that classroom section. If we look at, I guess currently we're kind of still on track with kind of in these, moving along these lines. It's important to note that while these rates might seem high, people are going, well, what's the issue? There's still a very significant staffing issue because we know that within that 3% or that 4% or that 2% lie some pretty critical positions. We know math and science continues to be a struggle area. Of course, students, teachers with special education background and endorsements continue to be an area. And we also know that we're not at pre-pandemic level staffing. So we are staffing based on higher numbers of students in our classrooms. Our goal would be as more candidates come available that we would increase staffing along with that. So I know that I lived this, and you could have never told me as a principal that I was 98% staffed because I didn't feel that way because there were just some crucial gaps that I needed. And so that continues to be the case. But of course, you know, we are working closely with pipelines, student teachers, really excited about our Teacher Scholars Academy partnership with UNO, that in the coming years, we will have cohorts of students that will be doing student teaching in the Omaha Public Schools. So we hope that as those pipelines of folks grow, we're able to increase our staffing levels so that we can fill more positions. So I kind of covered some of this. While we know that there's still some shortage, staffing levels are improving. We're doing really well even right now. Our efforts to invest and recruit, retain, and grow our own are yielding positive results. We still have a long way to go. And anybody, of course, you know, in our education programs, the levels have not completely returned to normal. So we're still hoping and pulling for more. We continue to work to meet this goal. And right about, just my last little update, right now we're at about, pull it up on my phone, about 97% for secondary and 98% for elementary. That is based on, again, classroom and core allocation. So for elementary, it's classroom teachers, and for high secondary, there's a core allocation that we've given to each school and trying to make sure we meet that number. We are getting close. But again, a school might have all of those positions, but still not have enough math or the desired number of math teachers or science teachers. We also work with schools to be creative. We've used long-term subs when we get to August 1 and don't have somebody for that, or inviting teachers to teach out of area if we can support them with a partner to help them with curriculum and lesson planning. Sometimes we'll have to do those things because we do know we have a qualified teacher who's capable of delivering instruction, provided that support, and so sometimes we'll do things like that. Happy to entertain questions.
Ms. Crackton?
And how are we lined up with our special teachers, our music, PE, art people?
Well, thanks for asking this question. I'm really excited. Our specialists, everybody sit down and hold on to this. We are 100% staffed. Music, PE, art, and don't know that any of us recall the last time that happened. Yes.
Oh, wow, how do we do that?
As people become available, we are hiring them. Yes, we are grabbing them as quickly as we can. I know.
So, yeah. You sort of referenced that we kind of had a reset in our data that versus our expectations pre-pandemic. Was 2022-23 the first year that we'd kind of had that reset baseline, or I just want to understand when that happened?
That was the year. I'm looking back at yes, because I remember being a principal and my life changed that summer. But yeah, it was around that time we had to adjust our staffing
expectations.
And I do want to say that I lived this, so when people, and I was probably one of those colleagues, like, I remember telling my team, we got reduced in terms of the number of staff we were going to get ARC allocation, but I kept saying to them, it's not that it's being taken away from us. They're not there to find. I remember saying that over and over because it was about 8 to 10 positions and having to shift some people to different campuses. But we were this was June and we still hadn't filled them since January. So it wasn't like these were bodies that were removed from us. They were empty at the time because there weren't sufficient applicants. So it's nice now that we are moving closer to that level, but it's certainly not sufficient. The goal would be as we see more candidates that we'd be able to add more positions. But it's a slow process. We're talking 5 to 10 years before we.
I have a question. Thank you. Please pardon my ignorance for being newer, but can you describe our pipeline resources?
Yes. So I think first you should know this board and the support of, I guess, superintendent, our predecessor really invested in, number one, starting a student teacher stipend, which now everybody in the metro, is either doing or seeking to do, and we have the highest stipend. So that, number one, helped with student teachers and getting a lot more people to be interested and staying on board. We have other partnerships with universities for our parent-to-teacher programs, so we can invest in some of our own staff that are already working in our schools and helping them gain certification. We also have, I talked about the Teacher Scholars Academy, which had existed, but now we have unique cohorts that are specifically designed to just be working in the Omaha Public Schools. We just selected, it's 28, I think, 28 something for this next coming year. I'm really excited about. And then we have our first TSA scholar doing student teaching this fall. And then next spring we'll have another group, but we have one that's starting in the fall. And now at the high schools with the education pathways, we're talking a lot about education, and then we talk about the Teacher Scholars Academy. We talk about them coming back. We just did on the education signing day, they all got a letter from me stating, we guarantee you an interview, and are really excited to see their progression.
I think I'm following up on Mr. Thielen's question, but presumably if we reached 100% on both of these numbers, if the 90 at the bottom there, 98 became 100, 95 became 100, that 100% is still reflects the adjusted numbers. And I don't know if you're the person to answer this question or if it's this guy, but do we plan on increasing our goal at some point so that inch our way back towards where we were pre-COVID?
Incrementally, it won't be a light switch, it'll be dimmer, right? Like, we have to look at available financial resources and available human resources and move up as we can.
And I don't think we've gotten a report, maybe it'll be coming at the next board meeting, about where we look at the end of this year. Is that about right? In terms of retirements and resignations.
Yeah, you have not received a report yet.
No, and I figure I will do the typical talent services update in August, I think is when it typically happens. So, and while we're seeing fewer retirements, resignations, again, still moving up is not just an easy thing. Complicated.
Thank you very much. Do you want to go to the next one, or is there another question?
I saw another question. Ms. Kratky, did you have one? No? Okay. We'll move to the next. Great. Our penultimate presenter this evening will be Ms. Utterback.
Briefly here, that was goal 1, right?
For staffing?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
I guess I was a little confused by why it was partially met versus met.
It was because of the one secondary
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was the one secondary in the August of 23.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I apologize. I thought we had a little bit longer based on the first presentation. Good evening, President Erdenberger, Vice President Snipes, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Ray. My name is Lisa Utterback, and I'm here to talk about our goal regarding ethic of care. Over the past 5 years, our goal as a district each year was all schools and programs will demonstrate an increase of up to 2% of students missing fewer than 9 days. As attendance remains a strategic priority and goal, I would like to review the data at each of our school levels and highlight the growth over the last 2 years. I would like to note as we review this data from the 24-25 school year is preliminary as of May 27th, 2025. In addition, partially meeting goal data is also included in the not met category throughout this attendance presentation. This slide is specific to the elementary level, a 5-year span from 2020 through 2025. Our school count from 2020 through 2023 included 63 elementary schools, and as we added 2 elementary schools, it increased to 65 in 2023 to our current year. This slide outlines 3 categories: met goal, not met, and partially met. Again, partially met is also included in the not met data. I would like to highlight the increase of schools meeting the goal from 16, 24.6 during the 23-24 school year to 38, which is 58.5% this current school year. In addition, we see an increase of partially meeting this goal increasing over the last 5 years. 22 schools increased and improved from the previous year of not meeting their goal. At middle school, 61.5% of our schools met the goal, and 5 schools did not meet the goal. 2 important data points. 3 of our 5 not meeting the goal did see an increase, although only partial. Also, since 2020, we continue to see more middle schools meeting the goal. Please note the addition of 1 middle school during the 24-25 school year. Again, 11 middle schools. Of the 11 middle schools, 8 met and 3 partially met their goal. In addition, we added 2 high schools that changed our count from 7 to 9 during the 23-24 school year. Unfortunately, 0 high schools saw a change in the percentage of students attending 95% or more of the school year. 4 high schools did see partial increase, which included 1 more than the previous year. Now I'm going to transition to overall district data, programs, I'm sorry. As we look at programs, 5 of 11 programs met our attendance goal during the 25 school year. Over the last few years, we have seen both an increase and decrease in the number of programs meeting our goal. Finally, as we review our goal as a district, all levels included in the slide, elementary, middle, high school, and programs, this data informs us that while improvement is still needed in many of our schools and programs, this last year, 24-25, 72.4% increased and 52% met strategic priority goal 4 by working diligently to prioritize attendance through aligning resources that address the challenges and barriers our students and families face. I also want to reiterate, last year, 32,008 students attended school regularly, missing less than 10% of the school year. 51 out of 28 schools did a tremendous job. Attendance remains a priority, and our goals and next steps are as follows. As we mentioned, attendance has been a strategic priority for the past 5 years, and although our data has improved in many schools, we definitely have a tremendous amount of work to do. Student attendance will definitely impact our moonshot. With that being said, the collaboration with school improvement and curriculum and instruction support is crucial. Good news, the work is already happening. Our next steps that I'd like to discuss right now are as follows. We have made changes to attendance policy 5008, which we brought forth to you recently. These changes will afford attendance team members needed time to meet with students and families, to identify barriers and provide support, and also allow them to use additional time to go further upstream and provide early interventions. Secondly, each school's attendance goal will now be in accordance with the 6 tenets of AQuest. This work is embedded into each school's school improvement plan and will support our ongoing work with positive partnerships, relationships, and overall student success. Members of attendance teams will participate in targeted coaching and professional development on the improvement cycle. We will be partnering with District Management Group to provide improvement coaching for attendance teams. We will have attendance lead at every school, including school support liaisons and school-based team leads. This coaching will support data used in building the capacity of teams to sustain more rapid professional development around attendance. And we know progress monitoring, data review cycles, and weekly check-ins will be a focal point of this work. Attendance is everyone's responsibility. Family communication and engagement is essential. Parents and guardians and community partnerships matter. We will continue to focus our efforts, in addition to everything else, to increase communication between schools and families. And as you may have heard in previous presentations this year, that attendance goals will be set alongside reading goals with students, families, and their teachers. And we will remain focused on building and sustaining positive relationships with students and families, because we know that that communication and collaboration is essential. Community partnerships will continue to play a pivotal role as well. In closing, we are committed to improving student attendance. The opportunity to support our schools and families alongside one another to focus on our moonshot is definitely our goal.
Just to follow up on the comment I made earlier about the experience at the Empowerment Network event, how often do the students themselves know that they are or are not on track with respect to attendance?
One of the most important things that our counselors, social workers, and school support liaisons do is when a student is struggling with chronic absenteeism, is they meet with that student and they talk to them about why they are absent. We look at those 9 barriers that we can focus on. And once we know what the problem is, that's when we look to provide wraparound supports. I also will tell you that students do have access to the portal and looking at their on-track information, as well as the communication that we focus on with parents at report card conference time.
Just to follow up, I guess that was part of my question. To the extent that our advisement, for example, has them check regularly on their credit status and their on-track status, are the students asked to self-regulate about attendance and at least look at that number to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do know that attendance is a big focus point for being on track in academics because we know they're interrelated. And without getting into too much of the data, we know that several years ago we rolled out the attendance dashboard, but as a direct result of the researches team with the 360 dashboard, that allows schools in those attendance teams to click on and look at where are we having deficits with credits, is it behavior, is it academics, and then having those conversations with students in either one-on-one or during their teaming time.
Any other questions? Samantha?
Not question, but the charts on this section are very easy to read, and I think that's part of sharing to others the outcomes of these goals. So just want to point that out. These are, very easy. And then too, I think to Mr. Thielen's point, it almost feels like some of these goals might have been unrealistic to begin with, or, I saw some comments that were like hard or stuff like that. So I look forward to the strategic plan coming up.
Thank you.
So then our final presentation, or presenter for the evening, will be Scott Schmidt, Executive Director of Research.
Hello, I am John Jacob Jingleheimer. Glad to be with you tonight. So this is Financial Accountability, Goal 1. By June of 2023, all major initiatives included in the Strategic Plan of Action will have an associated evaluation plan that allows leaders at all levels of the organization to actively maintain a continuous improvement cycle. This work began at the very, very inception of our Strategic Plan of Action, has persisted throughout, and seems only apropos that I would wrap up tonight's presentations with this little summary of some of the presentations that we're not viewing tonight and that you haven't had an update for, either at all or recently, but we'll tick through each of those. There were 3 primary overarching efforts that really define a lot of our work for this goal, at least in easy to define buckets. A lot of other things occurred certainly between these 3 major efforts, but these are the ones I want to focus on tonight, and they've come up in conversation in some earlier presentations. So the first one was through our collaborative measurement defining process. So we supported the goal owners of our strategic plan of action and their staff through collaborative measurement meetings, where we brought our expertise in metrics and measurements, what's available, how to take apart a goal to identify who are we talking about as the unit of measurement, a school, a student group, what have you. And then walking through all the questions that will ultimately lead you to data. Okay, well, how long do they have to be in our district before they count? All these very weedy questions to get to an answer that we feel we can put in front of the public, we can put in front of our board, and we can put in front of our superintendent, and really support with a logical basis for why we have a goal like that. And so we melded our understanding of how to do that with the subject matter expertise of those who generated our goals that they bring to the work every day to make sure that we are capturing our understanding from their understanding and then applying our craft and creating how we would measure. So in some cases, just very briefly, we touched on track earlier. That's a unique example because I believe at the time when we defined for OPS, what on track meant, there were approximately 3 different definitions circling. And so it allowed us through those conversations and the broader group, when we identified there were others who had a voice to play in that conversation, to join the team. And for other goals, it was more about, okay, when we were talking about reducing discipline, what are we talking about? Is that office referrals? Is that exclusionary discipline, reassignments? And so really getting into the weeds with our colleagues to fully define what those goals would look like and how we would measure them so they had that information along the way to support their efforts and ultimately goal attainment. The next major effort was our aligned reporting process. Many of you may have noted that in a number of reports on topics pursuant to goals in our strategic plan of action, we've incorporated callouts and other ways of sharing information that could be compiled from that. Our NWEA MAP report I mentioned earlier that we provide to the Board of Education every year has all MAP-aligned goals, and a little on how we were able to arrive at those. We talked earlier about definitions of grade level, and so using MAP's 50th percentile was how we kind of arrived at that one. And so through those 2 components, how we define goals together, and then how we share that information in an ongoing way with the public outside as well as within these workshops was a big focus of this work. And then finally, tonight's summary presentation and the accompanying report that is attached as receipt of report kind of provide a culminating view of the work and ultimately where we ended up for our strategic plan of action and each of the goals there within in the 4 domains. Okay, so noted here on the screen are the goals for which you have received prior updates and the dates when these updates occurred. They span really from 2022 through this school year just for this listing. I won't be updating on these tonight since there was an update in the recent past, but we will focus tonight on those goals which haven't had an update or not in a while, or are new altogether, and that are not also the subject of an earlier presentation this evening. In total, I'll be providing a brief update on 8 goals. And so these are them. And so we'll switch over now first to the first A5, which is our tech audit process. The district achieved the goal of one-to-one technology for our students well prior to the current school year. This has resulted in a goal status of met. The refresh cycle, a refresh cycle was created, it was executed, and now it has been routinized so that it occurs at a frequent pace so that we have the new devices that are functioning as needed in the hands of our instructors and our students and all other points in between who have need. We have current inventory that identifies a surplus of devices for spares at both the elementary and secondary level. And high school, as we wrap up this year, was the focus of the refresh this year. It's a tongue twister. The second goal for staffing, contemplating our leadership pipeline to ensure that our schools have at least 98% of their administrative positions and 95% of district administrative roles are filled by August 1st. The goal status on this one, for the sake of a couple tenths, is identified as goal partially met due to one metric at one level in 1 year, not quite rising to the goal standard. High school so we did note some challenge in this, and there was an issue identified of talent identification process, making sure that we are creating processes that weren't originally contemplated in the action steps, to just have as many ways possible to have promising talent in the halls of our schools or in other district facilities, pointed out to the folks who then could engage them in pipeline work and further development. So based on that, a talent identification process is currently functioning, collecting the perspectives of current principals and principal supervisors to identify promising talent to be developed for school and program leadership within our district. A high school principal succession plan has been developed with the Chief of Staff, Canyon Chisholm, and is currently stated for field testing in the fall of 2025. Elements of it are associated with a 360 feedback model comprised of ratings and input from staff, subordinate, and peer to the identified promising leader, as well as from those who supervise their work at either the principal, if they're an assistant principal, or at the principal supervisor level, if they're a principal who might be a good fit for a higher level position in the district office or in one of our high schools. Next, we have one of a couple goals from financial accountabilities domain, specifically F4, looking at district funding stream alignment, seeking to harmonize our funding streams that are under the control of the district with the goals and priorities of our district. For goal F4, the goal status is the goal is met. One of the huge components of this was shifting us to a participatory budgeting model, which has been completed, and that has then resulted in the prioritized alignment of our funding and expenditures towards the goals and priorities set forth by the district. In a similar vein, F5 seeks to align all private partnership funding streams to district identified priorities. Much work has occurred here and much continues to go on. We have a goal status of partially met. The issue that arose was that really a one-size-fits-all solution does not work for all funders or fundees in need. And so really the current effort as we seek to kind of scale and continue to align those private funds towards our need is to really provide awareness to all of those who both would provide funds or request funds in the need for alignment towards priorities. There are many interests, wants, etc., but we have few needs, and those are the needs of the district. So really making sure everyone's aware of the direction we're pulling and the hope to move these funds in that direction, as well as continuing to leverage any other opportunities that present themselves for alignment of these funds towards district priorities. Also in financial accountability, we have two goals from district operational services. Specifically, goal F6 seeks to create a facility plan to guide investment in our brick and mortar schools and programs from either the building fund or bond initiatives. ESSER funds supported use of this plan in the repair and upgrading of HVAC systems or facilities needing roof repairs. These expenditures both make our schools and programs more hospitable for our students, but also assist with students who have respiratory ailments like asthma. As such, we have a goal status of partially met, just noting that work continues on the 5-year plan, though we do have a plan that we'll touch on a little bit for F7, which is related to our bond efforts for bond phase 2. Here we find that all phase 2 bond projects were completed on time and within budget, and efficiencies in that work was able to produce some additional funds that could then pull projects off of the facility plan to be addressed with those savings. As such, F7 is assigned a goal status of goal met. Also from District Operational Services comes goal 4 in our ethic of care domain. Goal 4 is focused on ensuring our school environments are clean and orderly so as to lend themselves to a better learning environment for our students and a better instructional environment for our teachers. This goal also recognizes the often unsung efforts of our school's facilities crews. Many, many, many thanks to them for the beautiful environments I get to work in and that all staff get to work in our district and all students get to learn in. Recent efforts include the auditing of our physical environments with a new version of the audit implemented this school year in the fall. Regular audits of our schools and programs have begun this spring as planned. These audits, the results of these audits and written feedback are being provided to the school that was audited and their program's head custodian engineer, as well as the principal or program director, just to see what the team saw and what opportunities there are for improvement. Due to some staffing challenges, planned and unplanned, we even have our DOS leadership team out there doing spot checks or doing audits of school buildings every week. Finally, under our ethic of care, we have goal 6 that contemplates communication tools between the district and our community. The goal status for this goal is partially met. Our new website that was the cornerstone of this goal was completed and launched several years ago, as you know. Current efforts are focused on development of a mobile application to align and make available in one unified spot all the information our students, their families, and our community would want. The creation of such a tool has been strongly supported in annual communication surveying, including results from this year. An opportunity was identified to pause the rollout of the new OPS app to allow for the publication or the publicizing of Zoom, their new app, Find My Ride, I believe it's called, to ensure we are not inundating our stakeholders all in one year with all the information. So our current plans are to support the launch of the app that is contemplated by this goal as part of our tactical moonshot work to help ensure all students are reading on grade level by 2030. This concludes the summary of my summary, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just wanted to say I do have some questions, but I'll be asking the superintendent about them.
I just hope I'm not the subject of them. Thank you.
I have a question on the district funding stream alignment. Besides the participatory budget process, can you expound perhaps on procedure implementation? Is there maybe a high-level example?
So I should turn this on. So under participatory budgeting, you have a number of components. In many organizations, it'll just be provided a budget. Your budget is your budget. How you use it is often dictated, et cetera. And so as we've shifted towards priority-based budgeting, it includes a number of components to include this prioritization, where we have expenditures in every department, division, office, et cetera, that are known in a variety of purposes. What participatory budgeting does is it really puts leadership in every seat who owns a budget and allows them to make the shifts and moves to meet the prioritized goal for their division, department, or office. So then how that prioritization works beyond that, so if you're asking for additional funds for your department, division, or office because there's a major effort that you're wanting to undertake, it is provided to our executive cabinet for consideration and review, especially in its alignment to the priorities of the district, so that no additional expenditures are allocated to things outside of those priorities. Within budgets, there is a meeting that occurs prior to the budgeting process each year that seeks to both identify, if we should have to strengthen the muscle of reduction, what things would we look at? Additionally, ensuring that the expenditures within our budgets, especially the large items, are aligned to those district priorities and not just in kind of a blinked one eye kind of way, but directly pushing towards the goal of the district instead of someone's personal project or interest.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah, I guess.
Regarding goal 5, and just wondering, the first action step says to review philanthropic efforts throughout the district to enable a more equitable distribution of assets. What are some of like the that might be?
Part of what we're working on now is like looking at, let's say, as an example, I'm trying to think of an example that won't put somebody on blast. Sure.
So let's just say hypothetically, there's a school that has a bell that is important to their history, and it has a crack in it, but there is and there would be, $30,000 to fix this bell. And there's a lot of community support for doing it. It's a big part of the school's history, and kids like to ring the bell, and that's part of their traditions. That's something that, somebody might go to a funder for and say, can you help us get this bell fixed? And I think maybe you would address how we might want to interface in that kind of situation.
Yeah. I totally got what, I get that piece. I guess I would. What type of thing? Might not be able to be.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry. I didn't give you all of the hypothetical background. Maybe that school has access to those funders because of their population, and I think it's exactly what you're thinking.
Okay,
yeah.
I appreciate that. So then it says establish controls and process. So is there not something? My next question, starting, I think, goal 6, and you might not even have an answer, but around the facility plan, are there any like
At some point, the board, when we'll have to have a discussion about future bonds. We'll have to have that discussion. So as part of this, we found a $2 billion need, $2 billion plus over 20 years. So we'll have to have that discussion at the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray, it occurs to me that we've got 3 people on the board that weren't here when we had that. So if somebody could send that summary to those 3 people so that they will be prepped for when we have to.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much.
That's all.
And very much thank you. This was a really useful way to go about it. It was a useful way to be able to hone down as you noted, the parts of the existing strategic plan that probably mattered the most to the existing members of the board, not all of whom, myself included, were here when we put it together. And as I think even Vidi noted in terms of, well, that may have been a little bit presumptive in terms of the percentages that were set. I think it helps us see how we measure whether we've met the goals or not, and that will help us be better at setting useful goals as we address the strategic plan going forward. So thank you very, very much. Good job and very useful. I look forward to looking through this information again and, like I said, asking Mr. Ray some of my remaining questions, if any.
And also thanks to the team behind me too that spent time putting this stuff together, and to the team here as well, so thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now, as a little bit of a surprise to my board members, you might note that the agenda calls for one more item on the agenda, and that is a committee of the whole. So I'm just going to share with you that this is something that I've been hoping that we could do for a couple of years now, so now I'm going to try it. Committee of the whole, looked it up, refers to a situation where all members of a legislative body, blah, 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 come together to discuss and debate issues as if they were a single committee. So it's a lot less formal, and it can include all of us since we were put it on the public records announcement. I do not, at this point anyway, anticipate using it to get into meaty / interesting topics, but rather to cover a couple things that I think could be handled by email, but more easily if we're all sitting in the same place at the same time. So I'm going to give that a shot. The first things, superintendent evaluation goes off tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Annie said she would just send out a reminder, or will shortly, and our best evidence is that only 5 of us have even opened it yet, much less completed it. I am in that category, having been out of town all last week, but I'm doing it tonight. So let's all get it done. Don't go to bed tonight till you've done your superintendent evaluation. Thank you very much. One of the other things that I had mentioned at our very first meeting was that I was hoping to have chairs of the committees join our board officers meetings. That became kind of cumbersome. I had not known how that was going to work. So we're going to just do that on the first board officers meeting of the month. Go through each committee member. Specifically, Dr. Holman is joining us tomorrow, which is perfect because we're right in the middle of accountability and evaluations and all of those sort of things. Question to you guys, feedback. The TAC building staff is on a slightly shorter school schedule, and the question is, we meet 2 more times this summer, 3 more times. Is anybody not able, and it's okay, but is anybody not able to come if we move the meeting up to 5:30? Does that make it really hard on anybody? Can we do a 5:30 meeting for the next couple of times? Would that work? Is that, as far as we know, okay? I will double check with Vidi and Bree on that. Speaking of Vidi, she raised an issue with me about name tags. I think I'm qualified and authorized to make the decision, but I just wanted to touch base with you guys. Her question was, why don't we have name tags when we attend events as a school board member? Should we have name tags? Apparently that was something that was done and then stopped being done. And I mentioned that we have IDs, but she was talking about something more formal. Vidi asked that. She was at a meeting once and she didn't have a name tag, so I'm gonna just, huh?
We'll order. We can order.
So just,
We'll make sure everybody.
okay, we're gonna do that. Don't be surprised if those
They've
show
been
up.
ordered.
Oh, so don't be surprised. Thank you very much. And the only other thing I'd let you know is there's been an adjustment in our committee appointments. Bree was appointed to our Head Start committee. She was not able to attend a lot of the meetings, so Vidi is now our alternate. And it just so happens neither of them are here right now. And that actually is it. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was that I hope to have committees of the whole after presentations, relatively informal, and I promise I don't expect any of them to last more than 20 minutes at the most, unless somebody wants us to get into a topic that requires more discussion. Speaking of which, let me know if you think there's something you would like all of us to have a chance to discuss that we don't really, that Megan won't let us otherwise get together to talk about. So let me know about that. Email me, and that's it. So now I guess I read the adjournment part, right? Okay. Let the record reflect that the board workshop and committee of the whole adjourned at 7:50. Thank you, everybody.